Yashodanandana Brajatana Pankana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Dana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Dana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajadharandana Yashodanandana Brajadharandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Raja Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe, Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe, Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe, Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gaura Premanande, Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa, Privraj Gacharya Stotra Satya, Sri Srimad His Divine Grace, Hirabai Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Sri Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki, Skandiviti, Founder Charya's Divine Grace, Sri Prabhupada Ki, Namasarya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Samavat Bhakta Vrinda ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Grantaraj Bhagavatam ki, Jainitai Gaur Bhimanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Sarakaya Taksurandaritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Dita Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakandritam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanespadi Vrishabhanu Sthiti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyaiva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Sri Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama-shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasyaya Namaha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Sri Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Mukam karoti vatanam pangum langayate girim yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam yatkripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Bhagavatam class. We are continuing and today actually finishing the 17th chapter of the 11th canto, chapter entitled Description of the Varnasrama System. And we begin today with 53, and we'll try to cover till the last verse, which is text 58. So text 53, Putra Darapta Bandhunam Sangamaha Pantha Sangamaha Anu Deham Viyanti Ete Swapno Nidaranugo Yatha Putra Darapta Bandhunam Sangama Panta Sangamaha Anudeham Viyantyete Sapno Nidranugo Yatha Putra Darapta Bandhunam Sangama Panta Sangamaha Anudeham Viyantyete Sapno Nidra Nugo Yatha Sapno Nidra Nugo Yatha Putra Darapta Bandhunam Sangama Pantha Sangamaha Anudeham Viyantyete Sapno Nidranugo Yatha Putra Darapta Bandhunam Sangama Panta Sangama Anudeham Viyantyete Sapno Nidranugo Yatha
Putra Darapta Bandhunam Sanghama Panta
Sangamaha
Anudeham Viyantyete Swapno
Nidranugo Yatha Putra of children Dara wife Apta relatives Bandhunam and friends Sangamaha the association living together Panta of travelers. Why are you playing with? Why you have to play with the computer?
I'm listening.
No. Why? What needs to be adjusted?
Some filters.
Filter. If it becomes too much of a distraction, then it kind of loses its purpose. Should not be a continuous thing. Anu deham. Oh, 1 second here. Anu deham, with each change of body. Vyanti, they are separated. Ete, all these. Swapnaha, a dream. Nidra, in sleep. Anugaha, occurring. Yatha, just as. Translation and purport by disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The association of children, a wife, relatives and friends is just like the brief meeting of travelers. With each change of body, one is separated from all such associates. Just as one loses the objects one possesses in a dream when the dream is over. Kindly repeat after me. The association of children, a wife, relatives and friends, is just like the brief meeting of travelers. With each change of body, one is separated from all such associates, just as one loses the objects one possesses in a dream when the dream is over. Purport. Panta Sangama indicates the momentary association of travelers at hostels, restaurants, tourist spots, or in a more traditional culture, fresh water wells and walking. We are now associated with many relatives, friends and well-wishers, but as soon as we change our material body, we will immediately be separated from all these associates, just as upon awakening, that we are immediately separated from the imaginary situation of a dream. One becomes attached to the sense gratification of one's dream, and similarly, under the spell of the illusory concept of I and mine, we become attached to so-called relatives and friends who gratify our sense of false ego. Unfortunately, such fleeting egoistic association covers our real knowledge of the self and the Supreme, and we remain hovering in material illusion. Futilely endeavoring for permanent sense gratification. One who remains attached to the bodily concept of family and friends cannot possibly give up the false egoism of I and mine, or I am everything and everything is mine. Without giving up material sense gratification, we cannot become steady on the transcendental platform of devotional service. And therefore, we cannot relish the actual flavor of eternal happiness unless one becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, accepting Lord Krishna as one's only friend. One cannot give up the hankering for temporary and superficial material relationships. The traveler, far away from his home, and loved ones may strike up superficial conversations with other travelers, but such relationships have no ultimate meaning. One should therefore revive one's lost relationship with Lord Krishna. We are constitutionally part and parcel of Lord Krishna, who is the reservoir of all spiritual pleasure. And our original relationship with Him is full of love and happiness. But because of our desire to enjoy independently from Him, we fall down into the confusing, meaningless network of material relationships created by Maya. An intelligent person realizes there is no actual pleasure or satisfaction for the soul on either this planet or any other material planet. Therefore, like a weary traveler, exhausted from his journey, he should go back home, back to Godhead, for eternal peace as the faithful servant of Lord Sri Krishna. Translation again, to text 53. The association of children, wife, relatives, and friends is just like the brief meeting of travelers. With each change of body, one is separated from all such associates. Just as one loses the objects one possesses in a dream when the dream is over. Very important instruction. The example is given here of dream. We all have experience of dream. Sometimes we have good dreams, sometimes we have bad dreams. But they're all dreams that once we wake up, whatever we may have possessed in a dream, as soon as we wake up, we lose it. It's a dream. It's temporary. So therefore, our acharyas explain how when we develop this transcendental knowledge of the soul, when we understand the temporary position in which we are situated in this material body, whether we are in a sleeping state or in a so-called awakening state, our acharyas explain about daydream as well as night dream. Night dream we understand, but usually we don't think about our day awakening as a dream. But that is also in the same way a dream when we are not Krishna conscious. When we rise in the morning, we forget about, most of the time, we might remember something, but most of the time we forget about our dream, and we know it's only a dream, I was sleeping. But the one who is cultivating transcendental knowledge, in the same way he knows that when I go to bed at night, it's true, when we go to sleep, we forget about everything that happened in the day, isn't it? We take on other identities. So those identities and those activities that we perform, either at night when we dream or during the day, when we also dream, when we're not conscious of Krishna, then it is all, as nicely explained here, these are futile, meaningless, actually, meaningless relationships. The other example we read also in the Bhagavatam, we were mentioning the other day, just like during the rainy season, when a river is flowing, some pieces of wood will come together and stay together for a short time, then they will separate. So the living entity is going through all types of such interaction or relationship. Every time we take birth, we have a mother, we have a father, we have brother, sister, relatives, etc. And we become, Bhagavatam actually explains how family ties, family relationships are most difficult to give up. Because generally, majority of people, we're fully, completely identifying on this bodily platform. This is due to ignorance, actually. This is the power of the ahankar, false identification. And here it nicely explains also how, until and unless we awaken our actual, real, factual, eternal relationship with Krishna, then we will be forced, practically speaking, we will be attached, we will seek out such kinds of relationship. Because by nature, actually, we are pleasure-seeking living entities. Krishna explains how it is the birthright. It is the birthright of living entity to be happy. By nature, we want to be happy. We become happy by relationship. That's why on Facebook, everyone is striving to establish relationship. And sometimes people become very, I found my beloved, and I'm in a relationship, and all kinds of whatever. People are constantly falling in love in the material world, but most of the time they're falling out of love, because it's all temporary. Love exists in its pure original form, of course, on the pure transcendental platform. And this is what devotees, those who are cultivating knowledge, endeavor to develop, endeavor to reawaken our loving relationship with Krishna. So therefore, we see in our own lives, and we see in the lives of others, how the more we are identifying on the bodily platform, the more we become overly attached to other living entities on the bodily platform, it is a cause of so much complications and suffering. People end up killing one another, isn't it? Due to this false identification. So, very nice example being given in the verse directly here, that we should consider these relationships that we have generally on the material bodily platform as just like people who are meeting when they're traveling, and then they will separate and go in their own way, never to be seen again. So we'll go to text 54. Yes. Itham parim rishan mukto griheshvatiti. vasan nagvihayar anubhadyeta nirmamo nirahankritaha. Translation and purport. Deeply considering the actual situation, a liberated soul should live at home just like a guest, without any sense of proprietorship or false ego. In this way, he will not be bound or entangled by domestic affairs. But if the persons he's living with at home are of a different consciousness, they will not appreciate that he's living as a guest. But it's a nice example or instruction that Lord Krishna himself is giving here. So let's read the purport. The word mukta, or liberated, refers to one freed from all material attachment. In this status, called mukta sangha, one no longer identifies oneself as a permanent resident of the material world. This liberated status may be attained even by one situated in family life. The only requirement is that one should take up a serious program of Krishna Sankirtana, which includes constant chanting of the holy names of the Lord, worship of the deity, and participation in the Krishna consciousness movement. Without a serious program of Krishna Sankirtana, it is very difficult to give up the iron of shackles of attachment to women and the byproducts of such attachment. We see this phenomena taking place whenever a member of the family starts to take interest in Krishna consciousness. The family members who are not having that understanding become very disturbed. And I'm sure many of you have possibly seen or heard some anecdotes in the early days of ISKCON, because in the early days of ISKCON, in the Western countries, the life of devotees, the way they dressed, the way they thought, the way they spoke, was all unusual in the Western countries. So unusual that people would regard such people who did these things, means devotees. I mean, just walking around with some paint on your forehead in the Western countries is considered like abnormal. Abnormal means it's not the norm, because most people don't do that, isn't it? So, if you're a devotee by yourself, walking in a public place, immediately you stand out, obviously, because you're just so different. So, because majority of people are lacking, in India it's a different thing. Culture is different. Culture is Vedic culture, largely, and people are accustomed to seeing individuals having all kinds of different marks on their forehead, etc., or dressed, men dressed in what seems to be, robes, men wearing like ladies, a chadar over their heads and things like that. So, in the early days, this was seen as totally unacceptable by especially parents who would see their young daughter or young son kind of like become a different person altogether. And there are many very fascinating stories of what we call kidnapping that occurred in those days. Even someone is above, is no longer a minor, is maybe 20 or even 25 or whatever. They're adult. Parents remain so attached even for such children who are no longer children, but parents always consider their children to be their children. They would hire professional people to actually change their mindset. I mean, why he doesn't? He's not like he was before. He doesn't like to go to the cinema anymore. He doesn't like to eat meat. He doesn't. He's totally a changed person. So actually, from a devotee point of view, these are all healthy signs, good signs that one is losing interest in all kinds of material activities, material association, useless, empty, stale discussions that take place between ordinary people. These are healthy signs that someone is actually developing. So here the point being underlined is that one cannot continue, especially in a home situation, where, for example, if someone is just beginning to take interest in Krishna consciousness, and the other members of the family are not in the same understanding, or even worse, against it. So the idea is that one needs to perform regularly certain activities, of course, that we do quite openly, quite liberally when we live in an ashram. But generally, in an ordinary home, these activities are not standard, rather materialistic activities such as watching television or playing all kinds of senseless games, and people play cards all day long. Or, of course, in Vedic culture, we introduced playing. What is it? Yudhisthira Maharaj lost the whole kingdom because of that's an authorized game. What is it?
We have different name. I don't.
No. It's the chess.
No, but Yudhishthira Maharaj did not play chess.
No, that was some. No, that was another kind of gambling kind of thing. But it was maybe reminiscent or close to chess. Chess is actually a bona fide. Have you played chess? Yeah. You know how to play chess? No? Chess? Huh? Okay, you know chess.
My son knows, Narottam.
Huh?
Narottam.
Your son knows. Huh? Okay, yeah. We, last year actually we introduced chess in the Gurukul. And the boys love it. As a matter of fact, you have to take it away from them. Otherwise you'll spend like too many hours. You know, I read some time back that Srila Prabhupada used to play chess. He had one of his friends, every day it's like they would have a session of chess, and the deal, so to speak, or the arrangement was that whoever won or whoever lost would have to pay the lunch. So Prabhupada used to win most of the time, and so his friend was paying for his lunch. I think when Prabhupada was working or something. I forget exactly when.
Yeah.
So, it's not that when we become Krishna conscious, we become like, inactive. Rather, probably the opposite is there. We are meant to become more active, but in Krishna's service in so many ways. And there are certain activities that are not only allowed but recommended, such as especially for kshatriyas, or praying chesed is also good for developing, because one has to be very thoughtful and whatnot. So of course what is being stressed here is Krishna Sankirtana. The actual text is mentioning how deeply considering the actual situation. See, most people, they never think, really. You know, if you ask an ordinary people, if you ask an ordinary person, or if you ask ordinary people, who are you? They'll look at you in a strange way. What is the purpose of life? They'll find these kind of questions strange. But devotees, we are constantly playing with these kind of questions. We're constantly, actually, the verse here is mentioning that we should be purposely pondering over. As a matter of fact, that's one of the very nice, important instructions given by Narada Muni, if you will recall, in the 7th Canto. How the verse begins? The verse begins with I believe, dharma. Dharma mulam hi Bhagavan. A very important verse you should learn, actually, if you don't already know it. Dharma mulam hi Bhagavan. Sarva Vedamayo Harihi Smritam Cha Tadidam Rajan Yena Chatma Prasidati. Smritam Cha indicates that one who is a devotee, the sign of one who is a devotee is that he will, at different times of the day, endeavor to, as the verse is mentioning here, one will try to remember. One will try to be more conscious about his situation, our temporary situation in the material world. Even though it's not that we become devotee and then everything is finished. Rather, everything begins when we become devotee. How to properly utilize my time? What is the best way that I can be useful to the mission of the Lord, isn't it? In other words, as indicated here, one who is fortunate to have received this knowledge, one of the important activities that we should be doing is we should stop to think, to meditate. And here it mentions also one should deeply considering the actual situation. This is very important. That's part of meditation, actually. A liberated soul should live at home just like a guest. So, if all the members of the family are devotees, they understand that. We are here as guests in the material world, temporarily, and our home is not our home is Krishna's home, and we are his servants, and we render various services. So in other words, it's a different type of, when we become devotees, we have to, becoming devotee means developing this different type of consciousness, and we have to be careful not to again go back to the ordinary, material consciousness, because the tendency is there. The tendency will always be there as long as we don't awaken our eternal, natural, loving propensity for Krishna, isn't it? And therefore, because that doesn't happen immediately, we have to make that constant endeavor or effort. And if we don't, then Maya is there. In other words, if we don't voluntarily make an effort to be engaged in Krishna's service, Maya has all kinds of services waiting for us, isn't it? Because she's very expert. Yes. So that means that, the last point being made here is that even in family life, Krishna consciousness is so powerful. And we see that very often because many times there'll be only one person in a family. Either whoever, so it's not only children. Sometimes the husband or sometimes the wife, through circumstances, will come in contact with Krishna consciousness. And then the natural tendency, of course, is, when one receives something that he considers as valuable, he tries to share it with others. So all of us, we've done that upon becoming Krishna conscious, but then we generally find out that not everyone is interested as we are. Not everyone can understand what we think is very simple to understand, isn't it? So that means that very often that is the situation as we speak. Very often people who are maybe not even yet initiated but are interested in Krishna consciousness, practicing, chanting, but all the family members are not interested, or sometimes are even against. So the point being made here in the verse is that Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even in that kind of unfavorable situation, one can maintain a high level of conviction. But that is only possible if one has some basic sadhana. And that sadhana doesn't have to be known or shown to all the family members. Rather, because very often if you pull out your bead bag in a family where everyone is against, then that creates problems. So one has to learn to adjust to all kinds of situations and all kinds of people, including family members, so that one can maintain and cultivate one's Krishna consciousness. Even everyone in the material world may be opposed, which is more or less the situation in the world, because the majority of people are in material consciousness, and they don't like the idea of breaking up the family, so to speak. Of course, the devotees are not aiming at breaking up families, but the idea is that devotees are conscious of the need to develop this higher consciousness, and sometimes when it actually becomes practically impossible to practice our own Krishna consciousness, then Shastra and our acharyas recommend that one just leave that kind of situation. To save one's Krishna consciousness, sometimes that is needed, but that usually in rather extreme cases, and one should not whimsically be doing that, because that becomes very traumatic for family members. A few more verses we can read here. Yes, text 5.5. Karmabhira griha medhiyair Itsvamam eva bhaktiman Isted vanam vupavishet Rajavannava parivrajat. Translation and purport: a householder devotee who worships me by execution of his family duties may remain at home, go to a holy place, or if he has a responsible son, take sannyas. Purport: this verse describes the three alternatives For a householder, he may continue at home, or he may take vanaprastha, which involves going to a sacred place with one's wife. Or if he has a responsible son to take over his family duties, he may take sannyas, the renounced order, for a definite solution to the problems of life. In all three ashramas, ultimate success depends on sincere surrender to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the most important qualification one can have is Krishna consciousness. So, three ways are described in terms of cultivation of Krishna consciousness. One can remain at home, especially if the situation is favorable. Or husband and wife, they can both, it's one of two ways. Either the husband can take vanaprastha alone, or it's also possible for husband and wife together to take vanaprastha stage of life. Or, as mentioned here, if if one has a grown-up son who can look after the wife, and if one has permission from the wife also, then one can take sannyas. Generally, one should make sure that the members of the family will be cared for, basically. Okay, just a few more verses here. Text 5-6. Yasva sakta matirage putra vitai sanatura sraina kripana dhira mudho mamaham iti vadyate. Translation. But a householder whose mind is attached to his home and who is thus disturbed by ardent desire to enjoy his money and children, who is lusty after women, who is possessed of a miserly mentality, and who unintelligently thinks everything is mine and I am everything, is certainly bound in illusion. Purport. Although one may try by various analytical and psychological processes to detach the mind from illusory family attachment, one will inevitably be drawn back into the network of material attachment unless the heart is purified by Krishna consciousness. A miserly householder thinks only of his family or community without mercy for outsiders, being egoistic, lusty, attached, and always disturbed by ardent desires to enjoy money and children. A materialistic householder is hopelessly bound in a web of anxiety. Okay, last two verses here. Aho me pitarao vridhao bharya balat vajat majah anatha mam prite dinah katham jivanti dukkita. Oh, my poor elderly parents and my wife with a mere infant in her arms, and my other young children, without me, they have absolutely no one to protect them and will suffer unbearably. How can my poor relatives possibly live without me? But Krishna has other plans. Yeah, one thinks like this. One who is not Krishna conscious thinks that he is, what is it? Indispensable. Especially in regards to family. But no one is indispensable. And even in very difficult situations, Krishna or nature or destiny, providence, takes away people who seemingly or at least think themselves indispensable, which is not the case. Okay, our last verse and last purport here. Text 58. Evam griha shayak shipta vedayo mudhadirayam atriptastan anudhyayan mritondam mritondham vishate tamaha. Thus, because of his foolish mentality, a householder whose heart is overwhelmed by family attachment is never satisfied. Constantly meditating on his relatives, he dies and enters into the darkness of ignorance. Report. Andham vishate tamaha indicates that in his next life, an attached householder will certainly be degraded because of his primitive mentality of bodily attachment, which is called mudhati. In other words, after enjoying the sense gratification of considering oneself the center of everything, one enters into a lower species of life. Somehow or other, we must fix our minds on Lord Krishna and come out of the darkness of ignorance to our real life in Krishna consciousness. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 11th Canto, 17th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Krishna's Description of the Varnashrama system. Anda Kupam, right? Kupam? Well, deep, dark, family life is compared in Bhagavatam to a deep, dark well. Did you ever fall in a well? Probably not. But also I've not fallen in a well, but if anyone falls in a well, in a deep one, and he's walking alone, he's finished, right? So family life is like that. It's compared. Family life devoid of Krishna consciousness. Family life devoid of Krishna consciousness, as we have read, as described, that is Grihamedi. Yeah. So this is also here, Mudhadhi. Mudhadhi. Buddha. Buddha. Unintelligent, foolish, unintelligent. Yeah. Covered by ignorance. So maybe we should ask our one and only householder present in the class today if these instructions are like too heavy for householders. These are correct instructions.